think it's time I shared my own list of off-limit foods. Hey everyone, I'm Abbey Sharp. Welcome to Abby's Kitchen. Over the past few years here on YouTube and TikTok, I've seen a lot of nutritionists post their lists of like scary foods that they'll never eat or list off a bunch of strict diet rules that they live by. And I've always kind of been irked by the rigidity, fear-mongering, and borderline disorderly nature of these posts. But I also fully understand your curiosity here, and I'm sure a lot of you want to know about the rules that I follow with my diet as well, especially because I'm kind of like an anti-rule dietitian. It's definitely off-brand for me since I'm all about rejecting diet mentality, and that means ignoring what society or another influencer suggests is the right way to eat. And yet, when I really sat down to think about it, I realized, yeah, like I do have a general way I like to eat. But the difference between my rules now versus my rules 17 years ago when I had an active ED is all about intention and flexibility. I spent the past 2 decades healing my relationship with food. And with that has come a lot of data collection on what feels good to my body. My intention is to fuel my body in a way that serves me best. So my rules today serve me, not someone else. And let's be real, rule is a super clickbaity word, but it's probably not the best word to capture the flexibility in this diet pattern, as I realize that there are always going to be exceptions to my rules. Just because a way of eating usually feels best doesn't mean that it will always feel best in every situation, or that I always have to eat what I know feels best. There's always going to be social eating events, parties, and they're just also unique individual cravings. And I honor those unique experiences, even if I know I might not feel so great after. But generally speaking, this is how I eat as a dietitian, mom, role model, someone with digestive issues, mental health issues, and reproductive issues, and someone who aims to eat intuitively. Here are my diet rules. And a reminder, this is not a prescription on how to eat, so please do not follow my rules or eliminate the foods that I reduce in my diet. These guidelines are the result of years of individual data collection, so please speak to a dietitian to work through your own body data. All right, rule number 1, I don't drink juice. I mean, unless there's a little bubbly in there. But honestly, I rarely buy or drink juice. Juice was actually a big fear food for me when I was struggling with food. Like I conditioned myself not to drink my calories no matter what. And as a result, I really obsessed over juice and like hyper sweet calorie dense drinks. And I would overconsume them whenever I allowed myself to cheat, AKA binge. But when I started to give myself unconditional permission to consume juice, I realized that it actually wasn't really for me. I find that it like coats my mouth in a gross film that I don't like, it messes with my digestion a bit, and it usually just tastes too sweet for me. I also would just rather get my fruits and vegetables with fiber. Now, of course, there's always exceptions to this rule. Sometimes I craved OJ when I was pregnant, so I'd have some then. And sometimes I crave it in the morning after like a big heavy meal or if I drank too much. And in those cases, I drink juice, but it's definitely not something that I typically buy. Rule number 2, I don't drink soda. Similar story with soda, and I've honestly tried hard to test myself to see, like, is this a lingering remnant of my past ED? But my body just does not care for soda. I also don't drink diet soda, so this is definitely not like a calorie saving thing. But real soda, again, coats my mouth in a gross film, doesn't feel good to my body or my sleep, and diet soda probably feels even worse. I have nothing against aspartame or artificial sweeteners for the masses, but I just know that they do not feel good to my gut, and I also cannot stand the aftertaste. I sometimes get this random craving for like a really cold Coke or Diet Coke, but once I open the bottle or the can and I get like one sip, I'm like, nope, not for me, craving crushed. I'm good for another 5 months. But when I was struggling with my ED, I would drink 2 to 4 cans of Diet Coke every single day. Probably because I was trying to suppress my appetite, satisfy my desire for sweetness, and give myself some kind of like energy from the caffeine. So yeah, maybe this has some like PTSD elements to it, and that's why my preference is to not have soda, but either way,
It's definitely a no for me, dog.
Number 3, I don't consume SPLENDA or aspartame. Now, I've discussed the safety on artificial sweeteners in the past, and I think they are fine and safe to consume for most people. But again, I used to be heavily reliant on them, both from the aspartame in the Diet Coke, plus like tons of SPLENDA that I would put in my coffee and oatmeal every day. When I actually gave myself unconditional permission to eat sugar and I kind of edged these artificial sweeteners out of my diet, my taste buds actually started to change. I just didn't want things to be sickly sweet anymore. So even just a little bit of aspartame or SPLENDA tastes way too aggressive for me. I can't even have any sweeteners in my coffee actually. And I also cannot tell you how much better I felt without them. So SPLENDA for sure, we know is not SIBO friendly, and aspartame, it's debated, but maybe because I was consuming such large amounts of it via Diet Coke, just the sheer volume tipped the scale and did not feel good. Also, about a year ago, I realized that the protein powder that I was regularly consuming had SPLENDA, and so I switched to a stevia or monk fruit based product, and I realized how much better my body felt. And the flexibility piece comes in when like I'm offered something to try or it's like a small portion. I don't obsess over it, it's all good, but I just don't purposefully make these sweeteners a major part of my diet. Number 4, I don't eat at chain fast food joints like McDonald's. Have a good one. Ooh, they toasted it good for me. Okay, so first of all, this is definitely a privilege thing more than a nutrition thing. Like I literally have never had a thought about McDonald's like, oh, that's so unhealthy, or oh, that's so bad, or such junk. I never think about the salt or the fat or the sugar in these foods. I honestly just don't really enjoy them. I live in a city that is full of really delicious food options. A lot of them aren't necessarily even more expensive or even more healthy than McDonald's. Like I'll order fish and chips from a greasy chip truck and basically drown it in sugary ketchup with like not a green thing in sight before I go through a Wendy's or McDonald's drive-thru. And honestly, I know that meals like this, like devoid of fiber, don't make me feel great. Usually I feel a little sluggish after, and if it's dinner and I've got no fiber, especially if there's a little booze involved, I will be constipated the next day. I know this, and I'm going to talk more about this in a minute. So I personally just do not feel like most chain fast food is like worth f***ing up my digestion for a day. Having said that, sometimes I crave like a McDonald's McFlurry, so I'll get that. Or if I were to be out in the boons without a lot of options, I would of course stop to have a meal. But it's just not something that I seek out very often. Number 5, I pretty much only drink on the weekend. I mean, if I'm on holidays, then like every day is the weekend. Am I right? But I do try to have structure with my week, specifically with alcohol, because I know that alcohol doesn't add anything nourishing to my body like food does, even if I were to compare that with high calorie, less healthy food. So unlike with most foods that I don't put limitations on, I do try to limit my consumption of alcohol to weekends and never more than like 2 times a week. Now, here's the honest truth. I like an adult bevy. Sometimes I like 2. So I need to balance my own fun and pleasure with the responsible part of my brain that has to deal with the reality of being a 35-year-old mom and business owner. What? I know that alcohol does not make my body feel good. It dehydrates me, so pretty much without fail, I will be constipated the next day, even if I try to up my water. And it also really messes up my sleep and my blood sugars in the night. So if I choose to drink, I am knowingly choosing a bad night's sleep and like a frustrating morning just trying to get myself to poop. So out of respect for my own aging body, I try to really only drink on the weekends when I know I've got more flexibility in the day that follows to just like make it through. So usually that's once, max twice a week. If I were to break my rule and like drink on a Wednesday, I wouldn't punish myself like I used to when I had an ED. Like this is not about saving calories or trying to like burn off that cocktail at the gym. This is about limiting the self-punishment of a hangover in my elder millennial age. Rule number 6, I eat protein and produce at almost every meal. And this is one of those rules that I literally do not even think about. I just intuitively know that this is how I build a meal. Protein keeps me satiated so that I can get to that next meal without needing to have a snack. And I know that that's important to me personally because spacing out my meals has really helped with my digestion and SIBO prevention by stimulating the migratory motor complex. And then produce, whether it's veggies or fruit, definitely helps me to feel hydrated and gives me that fiber that I need to stay regular. Once or twice a week, I will eat out and have just straight up carbs like pasta or pizza or both, maybe even dessert. But again, I always know that this is probably gonna back me up the next day, so it's not something that I purposefully do very often. Rule number 7, I don't skip meals. Never. Pretty much never. Maybe if I were to be very sick, but even then I would probably try to find something easy on my tummy to get that fuel. And yes, this may seem counter to intuitive eating, and it often feels like it is, but you have to remember that intuitive eating is not just the hunger fullness diet. It's about self-care. And I know that there are a lot of reasons why I might not feel very hungry one day. Sometimes I'm sad, sometimes I'm stressed or tired or wired, or I feel nauseous because I have COVID or whatever, or something else I ate. But I know that my body still needs fuel. And if I skip a meal, it usually catches up to me and causes a ripple effect of problems after. But if I were to skip dinner, I'd wake up in the night hungry, which disrupts my sleep.
And then I start to have anxiety about not sleeping from hunger, which exacerbates my insomnia for days, weeks to come. Meanwhile, I get a headache in the morning for underfueling, and my digestion the next day is all thrown off because I had to eat something in the middle of the night.
So, skipping one meal because I just didn't feel like eating could potentially take me days to recover from, just due to some of the other physical and mental health issues that I have. So again, I know my body. I know that it needs consistent fuel to operate at its best. So out of an act of self-care, knowing that I usually actually feel better when I do eat something, I pretty much never skip a meal. And speaking of not skipping a meal, I also never skip my bedtime snack. Honestly, I just don't feel emotionally satisfied without a snack before bed. And I also know that I likely won't make it through the night without that last post-dinner nosh. I was raised in a bedtime snack kind of family, so this may be partially habitual, but growing up, we always had peanut butter on those simple little kind of basic crackers or buttered French toast every night before bed. It's actually one of my most vivid childhood memories. I can smell and I can taste that toast right now. And today, my kids have a bedtime snack every night, and I still cannot go to bed without one myself. It's actually not that different from the whole I need something sweet after a meal thing. Even if I feel satiated, I still want to have a bedtime snack. So this is basically what we call mouth hunger. So the need to eat for a specific flavor or sensation rather than the need to eat for a physical hunger. And mouth hunger is a totally valid reason to eat, judgment-free. For me, the bedtime snack is a combination of mouth hunger and preventing physical stomach hunger in the night to protect and preserve my delicate sleep. So yeah, leave me a comment below if you are also a bedtime snacker. Rule number 9, I move my body every day. Pretty much every day, even on Christmas. Unless again, I'm feeling sick. Now, that doesn't mean I do a formal workout every day. I don't obsessively exercise every day. But unless I'm really sick and it were not to feel good to me, I do move my body every day. And this is more for my mental health than my physical health. It's definitely not to maintain or change my body weight, but regular movement also feels pretty much essential for my digestion and regularity as well. And if you want to see what kind of movement I generally get up to in my usual work week, you can check out my video right here. But even if I were to be stuck on an airplane or in a car, I would try to get up, stretch my legs, stimulate my muscles a little bit, because I just know that when I don't, everything
just slows down.
Not good. And rule number 10, I keep unhealthy foods in my house. Always, no exception. Doesn't matter where we are, a bag of chips or a carton of ice cream is never too far away. The years when I didn't keep these kinds of foods in my house were really the years when I binged hard whenever I got the chance. If anyone's seen the classic binge scenes in the show Physical with Rose Byrne, you know what I'm talking about. Now, if keeping bad foods out of your house helps you in your wellness journey personally, then cool, you do you. But this is an actual hard rule for me. Seeing those foods every time I open the freezer or the pantry has helped to neutralize their power. It's made them just another food. So it doesn't matter if we're traveling or we're staying in the cottage or Airbnb or here at home, I'm pretty much always fully stocked. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. You know, some of you who maybe don't know me very well were possibly expecting me to say that like I never eat canola oil or like a Subway sandwich or chemical laden Cool Whip, but like that, I'm a 90s kid. Cool Whip slaps, am I right?
You can't have a pie without Cool Whip. Cool Whip? Cool Whip, yeah.
These are the most honest and closest things to rules that I have in my food books. And they're honestly just so innate at this point. It's just kind of what I do because it's what feels best to my body and my mind. So I would love to hear what some of your personal food rules are that you employ because it makes your body feel its best. And on that note, that's all that I have for you guys today. If you like this video, be sure to give it the thumbs up. Leave me a comment below with what you'd like to see me talk about next. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye!